Now, Vladimir Putin claims he doesn't intend to take the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv. This follows huge attacks in the region with tens of thousands of Russian troops storming across the border into the area. To get the latest, let's hear from Michael Clarke, who's former Director General at RUSI and Professor of Defence Studies at King's College London. Michael, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Kathy.
Just give us an update, if you would, first on the latest developments in Kharkiv.
Yes, well, I mean, the Russian push over the border in two places is now slowing down. It's being held, mainly because the Ukrainians have deployed some of their better forces from the south. So some of their star units, like, the 47th Mechanized Brigade and the 92nd, the 93rd, they've taken elements. They haven't taken the whole brigades, but they've taken elements of those brigades, rushed them north, and they're now holding this, Russian push. And this Russian push is never going to get that far because they haven't committed so much to it. They've got a lot of stuff in that area, but it's spread across a very long border. And unless they concentrate it all, the Russians are certainly not capable of attacking Kharkiv, the city, as such. They could put it under artillery fire if they get a bit further, but that's probably as much as they could do.
Right, and how about this drone counter-strike from Kyiv? Has that been effective or not?
Yes, it has. I mean, it won't affect that northern front that we're just talking about, but the Ukrainians are hitting back in the ways that they can. So we know for a fact that they hit Belbek Air Base in Crimea, right? It's at Sevastopol, and that's actually that's the military side of Sevastopol International Airport. And they've hit that. They've destroyed some aircraft and some facilities, and they've hit some of the radars. There have been attacks against the oil refinery, or some oil refineries in Krasnodar inside Russia, and also at the Russian port, Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, and then some other attacks around Belgorod. So the Ukrainians are hitting back with quite a lot of drones and missiles, and they're damaging bits of the Russian infrastructure as and when they can, partly to bring home to the Russian public that this war is not all one way, and also to indicate that they can put the Russians under pressure as well.
Well, you keep caveating it, understandably, by saying, they're doing what they can. Do you think, bluntly, is Ukraine losing this war currently?
No, they're struggling because of the lack of equipment that they had from the West over 6 months when this big American consignment was being held up by Congress. I mean, we're in a stage of the war now, Kathy, where both sides are sort of arm wrestling each other. I mean, lots of wars go this way, particularly big industrial age warfare, where the winner will be the one that will industrialize and bring stuff to the front most efficiently. And they're in an arm wrestle probably for the rest of this year. Neither side can launch a strategic offensive, but both of them could probably launch strategic offensive in the spring of next year. So my guess is, my estimation is that they'll arm wrestle each other during the summer, and then over the winter and into next year, things may then change a bit more strategically, either one way or the other.
And when you say that whoever wins is the one who can industrialize most effectively, does that mean that if we in the West make the right decisions, in your view, that Ukraine is capable of winning this war? Because, collectively we've got deeper pockets than Russia.
That's right. It should be no contest if we're looking at just the industrial capacities of Europe, let alone without the United States and Russia. I mean, Europe by itself is 12 times richer than Russia. With the United States is 20 times richer than Russia. We've got more of everything. The question is, are we prepared to commit it? Do we think that this war is sufficiently important to commit it and do what is necessary? I mean, the Russians are now in a war economy, and they've turned their economy to a war economy, and that will build up as the next year or so goes on. Western Europe is thinking about that. They've done a little bit of it, but not very much. And so the decision time for us is, do we support Ukraine in the way they'll need to be supported in the next 12 months to make a difference? And can they win? Well, they can prevail by making sure that the Russians, as it were, lose, that the Russians get thrown out of significant parts of Ukraine, and that would feel pretty much like a victory.
And the answer to that question of whether we do commit basically lies in the election results in this country, in the US, and elsewhere across Europe.
It will certainly, yes, it will certainly lie in the election results in the United States because, Donald Trump says if he becomes president, he'll end the war in 24 hours, by which he means he'll stop all aid, and then Ukraine will be faced with losing. And when they talk about negotiation, what they mean. I mean, I was in a meeting with some very senior British officials this week, and they said, the Russians would accept negotiation tomorrow. But what they mean by negotiation is we hold on to everything we've conquered, and then you agree all the other things that you're going to give us. I mean, that's their view of negotiation. It means effectively that they win the war.
Michael Clarke, with that sobering assessment, thank you very much for joining us. And there's a wry comment here from a listener, Lisa, saying, if I recall correctly, prior to February 2022, Vladimir Putin said he had no intention of invading Ukraine. Obviously, a man of his word.
Russia started a new wave of offensive actions in this direction. Ukraine met them there with troops, brigades and artillery. It is important to understand that they can increase and bring more forces in this direction. It is a fact, but our military and military commanders were aware of it and assessed its forces in order to meet the enemy with artillery fire.
We've reached a real milestone today, and I'm honored that we've got a message to market from President Zelenskyy.
This year, Russian jets has already used more than 9,000 guided aerial bombs against Ukraine. And we need the ability to shoot down their combat aircraft so that they do not approach our positions and borders. It is possible. It is just as possible as giving protection to the cities of Ukraine from Russian rockets. We urgently need Patriot systems and missiles for them. This is what can and should save lives right now. And I'm proud of Ukrainian soldiers. Each of you knows the strengths and capabilities of our soldiers. They know how to win. They must win. But Ukrainian defenders need your sufficient and timely support.
We're going to have a special focus today on boosting Ukraine's air defenses. Ukraine is in dire need of more air defense systems, and it urgently needs more interceptors. That's going to be a huge priority for us all today. Ukraine also needs more artillery and armor to defend its citizens and reclaim its stolen territory. And we're going to do everything that we can to help them. Ladies and gentlemen, Ukraine's struggle for freedom matters to us all. If Ukraine fell under Putin's boot, Europe would fall under Putin's shadow. So we remain determined to deter Russia from any further aggression, including against our NATO allies.